Welcome back to part 2 of Dinner in a Dress 1920s. This is a series in which I go through the decades making original recipes and clothing using my own designs. Today we're talking about the making of this 1928 inspired green chiffon dress. The idea that we have of the 1920s that we see a lot in fancy dress costumes tends to be like short skirts, lots of fringing, and embellishment. If you buy a 1920s style dress now, it's often not very 20s at all. They tend to be made of stretchy material, so it's basically a bodycon fit, and the skirts are way too high. This drives me crazy. I hate it. The great thing about authentic 20s fashion is that you can find a ton of contemporary articles and dress patterns online. I'm drafting this dress myself, but the drape panels, for example, are made using an article from a 1928 fashion service magazine that gives the suggested measurements and assembly. 1928 is roughly when the fashion for longer headlines starts to come back in ahead of the 30s, so the handkerchief hems are sort of the start of that movement. I found this green velvet burnout fabric first and spent ages trying to find a matching green chiffon, which you wouldn't have thought would be difficult, but was actually a pain in the ass. So eventually I just dyed some green chiffon to try and darken it a bit, which probably made like 0.02% of a difference. Good enough. My starting point for drafting this is super cheap trick. Pillowcase. I threw that in my own face then. I'm putting this over my mannequin in order to shape the shoulder slope. That's hard to say. Cutting out the armholes and collar, and that's basically it, because 1920s dresses are essentially pillowcases. The biggest challenge for me here is resisting the urge to put in like bust darts and shaping. I'm basically trying to forget everything I know about how to make clothes look good on my body, which is like not a lot, but also it's the 20s, we all want to look like rectangles. Why? I'm really mad about it. The pillowcase trick is really great and helpful up until the point you find yourself staring into a mirror for a prolonged period of time with a pillowcase pinned onto your body like Dobby the house elf. And you just start to feel really great about yourself and the way that you look. I'm gonna pull this together into another quick mock-up, just check how I want the sleeves to drape and that the fit is all okay, but so far so good. For these like handkerchief hems, in my mock-up they were 20 by 20 inches, which is a measurement that I got from a 1920s pattern. But in order to make this fabric stretch out, I think I'm going to have to grade them down to 16 by 16. And I'm not sure if that's going to look quite as good, but it's certainly going to look. So that's that on that. Okay, so I did a little bit more work on this last night. We do now have an intact dress. So what I've done is done some bias binding to finish the top edge, as you can probably see very badly. All the sides are sewn up, the sleeves are on, the basic shape is there. So the plan today is to add on the handkerchief hem bits. The original plan for these squares, I was going to do a small rolled hem around each side, which is what I did for the sleeves. Except that when I was doing that, I found that actually it was a nightmare to work with. With this being burnout fabric, the velvet sticks, the chiffon slips, it's just a pain in the ass. So what I've decided to do on this is just to do a zigzag edge around. And in original 1920s patterns, they quite commonly do like a picot edge. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or if I'm just thinking about Pokemon. But anyway, it's like a finish. It's like a sort of, I don't really know what we'd call it. It's a finish that doesn't exist anymore. But I can just zigzag shit with a machine and spare myself some aggro, so that's what I'm doing. I thought that attaching these would be easy. I tried machine sewing them, like inside out, but it's not really working. So I'm probably just gonna hand sew to try and keep the stitches concealed. So 1920s dresses tend to be quite heavily embellished, and my original plan for this was to use an original beading pattern. It's sort of fan-shaped, and I had all the beads in, I had all the colours, and I knew how it was going to work. But once I had an intact dress, it just didn't really seem to suit it. I think because of the handkerchief hems, there was a lot more angles to the dress than I'd anticipated, and it felt like it was just going to add another sort of design element that didn't really tie in with the rest of it. So I completely changed everything. No, you can't sit on my lap. You can't. The problem with being physically incapable of making a plan and sticking to it is that it did mean that I didn't have enough beads for the new design, so that's kind of set me back a few days. I was waiting for more to be delivered. I'm really hoping that they match when they are. But I am a lot happier with how the triangle design is looking than how the fan looked when I blocked it out. If you look close up, it's really amateurish. So don't look close up. I haven't been tracking the hours that I put into working on this because I think that if I did, I would lose the will to live. See more of me wearing this dress in my previous video, but now it's time for me to review the finished piece. This is probably one of my favourite dresses I've ever made in terms of how it feels on. It's super comfortable, it's super airy, it's super flattering. I expected the opposite. I've always avoided 1920s clothing, mostly because I'm quite short, I have an hourglass figure, anything boxy does not look good on me. So I'm kind of really taken aback by how good I feel in this, and I'm cautiously, really cautiously, a bit of a convert to 20s clothes. I made some mistakes in this for sure, trying to do the rolled edges on the sleeves because the burnout was just horrible, so I should have just done like the zigzag fake picot edge that I did on the drapes, but whatever, like you live you learn. And also, like I said, my beading is amateurish, but that's because I'm an amateur, so I think now that I'm more confident with the structure of the dress, I would bead it while it was flat before it was assembled, and I think that would help. I departed a bit from my original design, mostly because I randomly took against the original beading pattern I decided on. How authentic are the triangles? But I love how they look. I also changed the sash. That's just a long strip of fabric. It's, I think, was originally 8 inches wide, and I pleated it down. Originally I planned for this to just gather and pin at the hip, and I was going to do a beaded brooch for it, but when I was trying it on with my mock-up, I really liked the tie and having the extra flounce, so I just went with that. In terms of historical inaccuracies in the overall look, the big one is the slip I'm wearing. Like, I should have made a 1920s slip. It wouldn't even have taken very long. It's visible under the dress, but also, I couldn't be bothered. So with the makeup and the styling, I'm just having fun really, but I hope that the overall dress feels right for the era. It's the 30s and we're all looking cute as hell!